Yeah, so thank you so much for your interest in our family. The topic is Mission Today. And I just want to go to the first slide here. As you heard, we're part of Interserve, and one of the main aspects of our role is reaching out to international people with the good news of Jesus. And we love to partner with churches such as this church. We love to work alongside volunteers and leaders and just normal people in reaching out to our international friends. I've put today's text into a word cloud, and you could see straight away which words are repeated the most. Can you shout out the words that you can see? Well done, you got the main one. Tick, yes, you got love. Friends and command, good. Any other words that stand out to you? A bit louder? I can't hear that. Obey, thank you, yeah. Good. So that gives you an idea. Yeah, it's all about love today. And before May was saying, how can we recognize a Christian before us? Just like we can recognize a policeman, or how can we recognize a doctor? We can recognize it through love. And that's what we'll be thinking about today. So Jesus, in this passage, we read a little bit of the passage, but right at the beginning, Jesus is talking about remaining in him. And I put some other words that mean the same as remain. And if English isn't your first language and you want to chat with your neighbor to help each other with the English, that's absolutely fine. Please don't feel shy. Please talk about these words. So other words that mean the same as remain: continue, stay put, don't move, and then this word abide. So just like this plant, we've got to stay in the main part of the plant. We can't sort of do our own thing. Otherwise that'll have disastrous consequences. And the same with love. I wish I could bring a sponge in front of you and just fill up the sponge with water, because that's very much our experience. Is when life is difficult, we go back to the love of Jesus, and we, like a sponge, we bring up that love into our life, and then we can release it to the people around us. So, just an update on the English conversation classes. We've got some people in the room, so maybe they should be telling you more about the English classes than I can. Maybe their perspective is even more interesting. But, you know, we've got this English conversational class. Well, okay, how wonderful. It's great to have the volunteers from church. It really is. It's great to have Ben. We've got to get you in, James, to do a bit of teaching as well. It's wonderful to have the church involved. King's Kitchen, it runs straight after the English. So we've got all these people milling around, and it's really God's people in action. It's a wonderful thing. It's not just an English class, because look at all the things that have come out of it. Yeah, it's an English class, but it's so much more. You know, it's making Christingles together and studying the story together of what the Christingle is. It's about decorating eggs, yes, for Easter, but it's learning about the Easter story. It's about writing homework. And after the English class, we give some writing homework. It's optional, but many of the people who come write some deeply personal things. There's something about writing that's different from speaking. What about the volunteers I've mentioned? What about meeting up outside of the class, meeting up at a new shop and shopping together for interesting food from around the world? You know that I like chili on everything, yeah? So it's got to have chili, otherwise it isn't worth eating. Meeting up for food, meeting up for celebration times together. It all comes out of this together time in the English. So may this be an encouragement to you. You're all a part of this with your prayers and your support. So today we've been hearing about love, and love has been mentioned 9 times. 9 times. Yeah? And a little bit later, I'm going to ask, I think Heather's got them at the back, but I'm going to ask Heather to give out a word search. And in this word search, there is love 9 times, all right? You don't have any helping words. The helping word is love, and it occurs 9 times. And it can occur backwards, forwards, diagonal, horizontal, and vertical, all right? So a little bit later on, Heather's going to hand those over to anybody who's interested in finding love 9 times in the word search. But it's these words, agapao and agape. Now, I'm not a Greek scholar, but when I looked into these words, it means completely. It's a complete and total love. It's an unconditional love. No strings attached. It's a love that gives regardless of emotion or the worth of the other person. You might not get anything back from this kind of love. And it's a love that is given whether it's deserved or not. So it's quite an amazing love. And you can see, if you think back to what May was saying, it's like the clothes that we wear. If we show this kind of love, it's going to be amazing. Now, you don't need to be a missionary, I'm doing that in inverted commas, to show love to the people around us who would be absolutely amazed by this kind of love. People can see it, people can sense it, people can experience this kind of love. Has everyone got a word search? The people who are interested. Put up your hand if you're interested in having a go at the word search. Yeah. If you find all 9 of them, I'll be truly amazed. Because we got Elizabeth working on it in St. Saviour's. She only found 2. She only found 2. Yeah. Right. While those word searches are going out to the children, we see in verse 12, here is my command, love one another, just as I have loved you. Here is my command, verse 17, love one another. So Jesus is repeating this. He wants us really to do this. It's a command. It's not an option. It's not advice. He's commanding us to do it. It seems impossible, doesn't it? This kind of agape love. But with Jesus, everything is possible. I wonder, is there someone at school or a neighbor or down the road, someone that you could start praying about, that you could love with this kind of love? So at the bottom it says, what was Jesus' love like? What is Jesus' love like? Because, of course, we read about the love of Jesus in the Bible, but we also get to experience him in our everyday lives. So that's why I've used the past tense and the present tense there. When I think of Jesus' love, I straight away think of the cross. That's my first thought. But there's so much more. I mean, the cross is an amazing thing. Yeah, don't get me wrong. That is an amazing way that Jesus showed his love for us. But there are many other examples. And I've got some thoughts here to share with you. Jesus' love is sacrificial. Now that word sacrifice, I had to think about that. How can I explain the word sacrifice in an easy to understand way to other people who are not familiar with this word? It's a giving of ourself for something or someone else, and it's giving up something that's valuable or important for us for the sake of something else. And so we think of Jesus' love, very sacrificial. I mean, if you think of God, God was God, and then he became fully human, and then fully God. Isn't that an amazing sacrifice? That forever God is changed. Forever. It has eternal consequences. Jesus coming for us, emptying himself for us. My second example is Jesus' life was full of love. And you can think of more examples than this, but I love the way that Jesus valued men, women, and children. You look at love from around the world, and perhaps only men are valued in that particular culture or in that situation. But not women, no. And not children. But Jesus' love valued even the little children, even the elderly person, even the women. He served others with humility. He healed people. He even touched people that had infectious skin diseases. He sent evil away. And he comforted people who were sad. He fed people who were hungry. And he wasn't afraid to talk with everybody. He talked with everybody, even the people who are very hard to talk with. He talked with religious people. He talked with people who had no religion at all. He talked with people who are hated in society. People who we would naturally say, no, we don't want to talk with people like that. He talked with people who are low down in society, the forgotten people of society. But he also talked to very, very important people in society, the movers and shakers, people in government, people with a role to play. Jesus talked with everybody. Jesus forgave people and gave people another chance. And he didn't give up. And the thing that really struck me is that Jesus always allowed people a choice. What a love, that he doesn't force his love on us. He always gives us the choice to respond to his love. We can walk away. What an amazing love. He allows us to do that. He gives us the dignity to do that. So lots of examples of the life of Jesus, and I'm sure you can think of more. Perhaps you can continue this discussion afterwards. Is anybody hungry? We've been talking shop, haven't we? Let's get down to business and talk food. Well, does anyone feel like having a cookie? We haven't got that many to feed everybody here. But if you're patient, you might just get one. If you're good and sit still, you know? You might just get one. All right? James, you keep an eye on people, right? Only the good ones, yeah? All right. We were in a place called Laos for 12 years. And do you remember the man who had the orange robe around his body? That was the main people group that we were trying to reach with Jesus' love. What a challenge. First of all, we had to learn that language. Second of all, we had to go and meet people and talk with them in their language. We had to find a common way to talk with one another. It wasn't easy, but I absolutely loved it. And they might be clothed like that, the Buddhist monks, but they're just normal people like you and I. And we would sit down and talk together. And we even had monks coming to our classes and learning English with us. That was quite interesting as well. And think about that question at the end that May gave us. How do people know who we are as Christians? Well, in Laos, where we were, it was unusual to have an oven or a cooker. How many of you have an oven or a cooker at home? Maybe I should ask the other question. Everybody, right? Or you have access to one, yeah? An oven or a cooker. Well, in that country, it's quite unusual to have an oven or a cooker at home. People would barbecue their food every single day, starting from scratch. So those who like barbecues, you would like that place. But a lot of work every day, cooking from scratch, from a barbecue. So what did we do? How did we start reaching out to the people around us with God's love? How did they know that we were Christian? We started making cookies. Well, I didn't make it. I helped taste them to make sure that they were of sufficient quality to be given out to the community. We must have made thousands of cookies over those 12 years. We gave them to children We gave them to neighbors. We gave them to tax officials who came looking for extra money from what we were doing over there. We gave them to friends. We gave them to foreign people. We gave them to local people. We gave them to people who were begging on the street. We gave them to all sorts of people. And sometimes, when we had extra energy, we'd even try and write in the swirly-whirly writing of the local language. Lots, very, very difficult to write. And we'd try and write a verse from the Bible there. Just a little bit of a blessing for the local people. And people loved it. Because have you ever tried making cookies over a barbecue? It's just not going to work. And people go, what's this? What's this lovely snack? And they taste it. Oh, that's lovely. Did you make it yourself? Yes, we did. Here you are. No strings attached. Enjoy. Enjoy. And we did that, and we had a very, very good response to that. And I want to tell you another story about a lady called Lottie Moon. Now at St. Saviour's, a grand total of 0 people heard of this lady called Lottie Moon. Has anyone here heard of Lottie Moon? You won't forget this name, Moon, right? What a surname. Yeah? Lottie Moon, in the 1800s, was one of the first single ladies to go to China. Wasn't heard of. It wasn't heard of before that. Single ladies were not tolerated to go out overseas to serve the Lord. And if they did, they would be with their husband, and they'd be confined to teaching, perhaps in the home, while the husband went out. So she was one of the first ladies who went out with much opposition. And true to the times, she ended up having to stay in her home, but teaching a few of the expatriate children there, not even having contact with the local people. Well, in the 1800s, China is a very different place to what it is now. You know, it wasn't a global powerhouse as it is now. It was actually a really poor place, struggling with war. And there were people who were really, really hungry there, and people starving on the streets. And Lottie could see that through her window, and she longed to do something about it. Well, what did she do? Can you guess? She started making cookies. And she started going out and giving these cookies to the people on the streets who were literally starving and suffering the ill effects of war. Well, what happened? What do you think those people did? You should think so, shouldn't you? Yeah, a cookie's a cookie. They didn't. They rejected Lottie's cookies because they thought that she was trying to poison them as a foreigner. Can you imagine? That's the level of opposition that Lottie and many other mission workers face, that there's a trust issue there. So they would leave the food there. Can you imagine? Starving. They would leave the cookies there. Well, Lottie didn't give up. She carried on making cookies, and finally one boy who was absolutely starving took a tiny crumb and ate it. And he really enjoyed it. And he didn't drop dead. And he took another crumb, and then he wolfed down the whole cookie, and he called the whole community over, and he said, "This woman isn't trying to kill us. She's just giving us food. Let's eat." Well, you can imagine what a stir that caused. And through that very simple act of making cookies, Lottie got to share Jesus with the mums, the dads, the family. It was a very sort of family-orientated society. The whole family would come and listen to Lottie, who taught herself Chinese and shared about Jesus with them. And the amazing thing is down the line, I don't know how they quite worked this out, but one man that Lottie shared Jesus with eventually became a leader of a church and shared with up to 10,000 people about Jesus. I mean, I just was amazed by this story. And I mean it as an encouragement to you, because we don't need to be some amazing sort of mission person and go to a far away country to share about Jesus, we can make cookies. We can do that in Oldham. They will still be appreciated. A cookie's a cookie, isn't it? And I think James can choose the best behaved adults' children, and yeah, because I think we do actually have some cookies for you that May has made with Lottie's cookie recipe. Isn't that amazing? That's another of her legacies. She's got a recipe to share with us. So come on, James, you sort us out, otherwise there's going to be a riot.
Well, I think the children have been particularly well behaved. So should we start with the children?
Sorry, adults.
Enough to go round, and then see everything after that.
I know, it's a hard life, isn't it, adults? But, you know, the kids might have compassion on you and share a little crumb, if you could. All right? So put up your hands. Put up your hand if you want a cookie. Let it pass by if you don't. Someone else will gobble it up, I'm sure. Sorry, Mum and Dad over there. Yeah, it's gone. It's gone. While May's just giving out the cookies there, yeah, so Jesus' love is sacrificial. Think about the cross. Think about how God became fully man, fully God. Jesus' love in his daily life, all those things that Jesus did to demonstrate his love for us. I've got some other thoughts. Jesus' love didn't choose comfort and safety. It's a little bit like the sacrifice, isn't it? But he actually moved towards danger for us. He felt pain, felt grief and suffering and being abandoned and being left alone by those closest to him. Jesus' love goes first. And we read that in verse 16 where Jesus says, "You didn't choose me, I chose you. You didn't appoint yourself, I appointed you to bear fruit." And thinking back to the English classes, you know, it came from just 1 or 2 people, and now over 30 people come to those English classes. And most of those people don't know Jesus. And maybe that's the fruit that we're praying for. Because we're learning English through the Bible. So the learners are reading the stories, wrestling with the stories, and then thinking about them for themselves. And then, of course, yeah, Jesus on the cross. Jesus' love, willing to die for us, to forgive us and bring us back into God's family and make all things new. We read that in verse 13. No one has greater love than the one who gives their life for their friends. And then last of all, Jesus' love gives peace and joy and purpose and friendship. And this is the amazing thing that, you know, we were once slaves and now we're friends. Isn't that amazing to actually think of ourselves as a friend of God, friend of Jesus? And the world will respond to that because that is just an amazing thought. You know, God isn't far away. He isn't unattainable. He is our friend. So loving others as Jesus has loved us. Think about the story about Lottie Moon and her cookies. Think about how people know that we're Christians. It's because of love. The way that Jesus has loved us, we're to love other people with that agape love. So my first thought is, yep, it's there. Serve others. Serve others. And don't look for reward. Don't look for praise. Just serve. That's the way Jesus loved us. He just served us. He didn't wait for us to say thank you very much. He just served. So serve without praise. The second thought is talk with everybody. Talk with everybody. Let your love go first. You know, the world will wait for the other person to come first. Say, oh, I'm not talking to that person until they talk to me. No. Jesus moved first for us with his love. Let's do the same for others. It will really stand out, our love, if we move first, even to those people who we wouldn't naturally go and love. And my last point is share about Jesus. Share about Jesus with humility. Be humble. We don't need to argue. We don't need to shout. Think of the way Jesus has loved us. He didn't force his love on us. Give others that choice. Give them the dignity to choose to respond or not. And I've got some prayer cards. If you want to pray for our family, pray for the mission work in Oldham, got some prayer cards at the back. But just want to encourage you as a church this morning, love others as Jesus has loved us. That's the way people will know that we're Christians. Amen.